Hello and welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to the county of Essex, where I am on the edge of the village of Belchamp St Paul, and it sits right on the northern edge of the county. In fact, the Suffolk border sits just a mile or so to the north. And I'm here to complete a circular walk of about 4.5 miles. That's going to take in plenty of historic sites around the village, as well as the neighbouring village of Belchamp Otten. But to begin with, this lovely structure here, this is the Church of St Andrew in Belchamp St Paul, and this dates to the 15th century and is Grade 1 listed, and actually is relatively unchanged since its first construction. And just across the way, over the other side of these trees, I'm going to have a little look at a historic barn, one that is potentially the oldest in the entire county. So it might not look like much, but just behind me over here is a barn, and this is a Grade 1 listed building that dates all the way back to circa 1000 AD. So it could be pre-Norman, making that potentially a Saxon structure, and that is clearly one of the oldest buildings in the area. Even churches and stuff are generally not that old. So it did go through a rebuild in the Norman period, but all of the roof rafters are original, and on the southern side over here, I believe this is all original structure as well. Now, of course, the asbestos roof and the exterior cladding is not original. That's all been replaced at later times. So I'm just about to enter the village of Belchamp St Paul, and I can see the Church of St Andrew that I started at just over there, and I followed this path around the fields down into the village, and then I'm going to head through the village slightly, out the other side and over the fields to Belchamp Otten, which is the neighbouring village. So I've arrived here in the village of Belchamp Otten, and I've come to take a look at this beautiful historic building. This is the Church of St Ethelbert and All Saints, and it is Grade 1 listed and dates all the way back to circa 1130. So it's nearly 900 years old. Now the nave, which is this centre part here, this is the oldest section. That's what's dated to 1130, and also the south arch, which I'll have a look at in just a moment. This porch is 14th century addition, and then on the right here, this section here is the chancel. This is dated to the 13th century, and then the tower is 15th century. So as you can tell, there's been an awful lot of additions, alterations and changes to this building, but the core fabric is Norman and it is beautiful. So this is that early 12th century archway, and you can see this gorgeous chevron carving around this gently curving archway. Now this is a classic Norman style with this continuous curve and the chevron pattern, and you can also see some other additional carvings down the pillars, and also some flowers, I believe, carved into the columns here. So I've just left Belchamp Otten and I've come across a lovely view that I wasn't expecting. I can see it right across the fields because it just starts to dip away down here, down to a little stream valley. And on the far side I can see St Andrew's Church where I started, and that's obviously where I'll be ending the walk. But just pan across, there's some large oak trees over there, and there's actually an enormous herd of deer, probably around 50 or so, just sitting out in the field. I haven't got a really long lens with me, but I can zoom in just enough to make out how many deer there are. It's absolutely amazing. I want to keep an eye on those because I'm actually heading down the road here up towards a historic house before I branch left along the base of the valley. So I might get closer to them and hopefully have a better view. So just up ahead is Bevington Hall, and it is the next historic tree on this walk, as it dates all the way back to the 16th century, or possibly even earlier. And it has a facade that dates to 1772, and the whole building is protected as a Grade 2 star listed building. So I'm down in the base of this tiny little valley at the moment, and you can see it only drops 5 or 6 meters from the surrounding countryside, and there is still a little tiny stream flowing down at its base down here. And this actually is travelling south, and it curves round and enters the River Stour over near Brundon. And I've also seen a couple of fish. There were a few little sticklebacks, I think, but also some kind of weird worm. I'll put it on the screen now. I don't know what it was, but it was like probably 5 or 6 inches long, very, very thin, and it was swimming its way through the water. Anyone know what that is? Please let me know in the comments. So I'm now coming towards the end of the walk with the Church of St Andrew just 100 metres or so in front, and it has been absolutely gorgeous checking out these rich historic sites. And clearly the oldest was the barn right at the start, over 1,000 years old, and then seeing the lovely Norman church as well in Belchamp Otten. If you've enjoyed the video, please hit like, hit subscribe, and also ring the bell to keep up to date with future uploads, and I will see you next time.